No, we're good now.
We're good?
Yeah. And I'm here to announce my candidacy. Thank you.
People are desperate, Olivia. Don't make jokes right now. Should we turn it up a little?
How do we feel about this sound? A little bit more? No, turn it down. It needs to go up. It needs to go up. Patti, turn me up, baby.
Move your butt up a little.
That's fair.
She was very gentle.
She is a gentle.
Thank you.
Love.
Testing. Okay, we're good.
I'm live streaming, so I gotta be careful what I say.
It's quieter up here, but I'm very loud, so don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry, folks.
Are we hearing
Wait,
it?
more?
No? Is
How
it
are we
on?
doing?
Testing?
That's why I have to turn it on.
A little more?
Don't worry, guys. I have
Hi.
2 degrees.
Good, how are you? Thanks for coming. Are we good on volume?
Are we good? We're good?
Yeah, we're
Okay,
good, we're
folks, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. We are at our shitty night of the year. Try to hold your poops till the end. Tonight we're talking stinky sewage and shit and sanitation with our Chicago for Chicagoans founder and executive director, Patti Swanson. But before we welcome her onto the stage, I have a few notes. Chicago for Chicagoans is a 501c nonprofit. We exist to spread joy and learningness with the Chicagoans of this world, also tourists. So they're welcome too. So what that means is we offer pay-what-you-can programming, which means we're donation-based, folks. So if you like what you hear tonight, please throw us some money. We take cash, cows, kidneys, firstborn children, cash, check, cash, and internet money. That's what the QR codes are.
Do you take cash?
Yeah, we take cash. Cash monies. Your donations very much help with paying our speakers. We do pay our speakers for their time and research and talents. Also things like, I don't know, the printouts. If you didn't get a printout tonight, give us money. We'll have more. Don't trust me, though. I'm in marketing.
Yeah.
We have a good printer. We have a good printer, right?
Yeah.
We have a good printer. Oh, and our website, and that helps you get here tonight. So
I think that's it.
that's it. So without further ado, Patti.
Thank you. What a glorious introduction. Hold on. Let me just get situated. Perfect. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good.
Oh, my God. Is this anybody's first time here? Okay. So the poop jokes aren't always a part of the lecture, but my topic is literally sewage, and I love lowbrow humor. So if you can't handle a lot of really groan-worthy poop puns, you can leave at any time. This is a pay-what-you-can lecture. Thank you. No, but on all seriousness, thank you, newcomers. Lots of familiar faces. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's very exciting. Our lecture series this year is, of course, all about ways that Chicago has shaped culture beyond the humble shores of Lake Michigan. And so I knew immediately what I wanted to talk about, which was poop and sewage, and you're going to learn why I wanted to talk about those things. But literally everyone in my life told me this was a shitty idea. That's the first one. So the reason I became interested in this topic is because I live in Chicago's Albany Park neighborhood. If you take our walking tours in the summer, guess what? It's me. I'll show you around Albany Park. I've been there about 9 years, and when I first sought out to research my first ever neighborhood tour of Albany Park, naturally, I started looking for interesting buildings in Albany Park, and one of the buildings I noticed right away is the first page of your packet, or slides for you online viewers, and that is the North Branch Pumping Station. The North Branch Pumping Station, I saw it, and I was like, what is this gorgeous Art Deco building? And then I found out it's literally full of poop. And this is a brick from it. I'll tell you how I got that later. Donate online and I'll tell you where the brick came from. But regardless, I walked around my community and I was like, wow, this is a really cool building. And so I started learning more about pumping stations. And then, living in Albany Park, does anyone live in Albany Park? Do I got any Albany Parkers in the hood? What up? So Albany Park's a very swampy community. The river runs through it. It's actually where the North Shore Channel meets the native North Branch of the Chicago River. And we've had a lot of water and flooding issues in the time that I've lived there, which is about 9 years now. And so I became very interested in these stormwater diversion topics and the pumping station and the channel. And they've done a lot of rehabilitation in the parks to put in native prairie plants. They removed the city's only waterfall and put in the city's only fish ladder. So I've been really aware of the river and waterways because of my community. And that led me down to a rabbit hole because I'm a researcher. That led me down the rabbit hole of just generally being interested in canals and waterways as transit. And then I started reading about how they were really polluted. And long story short, I knew I had to talk about poop. The other reason I really wanted to talk about water and wastewater management is because I grew up in Texas. Surprise, surprise, I too am a Chicagoan by choice. It's okay, you're a Chicagoan too. So I grew up with water scarcity, and Texas is pretty much always in a drought. After a big rainstorm, my well water at my childhood home would run straight brown. And I was very cognizant of water management and drought and just using very little water. I am in and out of a shower in 10 minutes, y'all. And when I moved to the Midwest, I noticed that my roommates would spend fucking an hour in there. Just doing what? I have no idea. And Midwesterners, I came to realize over time, really take water for granted. And their relationship with water is really silly because you guys are we have so much, you guys, I'm not one now. But it's well, we have Lake Michigan. We have all the water in the world. When the apocalypse comes, we're set up. And I make that joke all the time. But the reality is, if you don't manage water well, you also end up with water in your basement. So if you're wondering why you have water in the basement, it's because y'all keep doing fucking your laundry when there's a rainstorm. So that's the other reason. I wanted to just mock some lifelong Midwesterners a little bit and try to teach you guys about responsible wastewater management today. So we're going to take it back to get started. Lastly, before I begin, I would like to point out this gorgeous print by McBitterson's behind me that says, "You miss 100% of the shits you don't take." It hangs in my bathroom. Okay. So we're going to go back to the earliest history of Chicago, partially because I just am really fascinated with the rural history of Chicago, but also because it is actually relevant. So we're going to take it back to 1673 when Jesuit missionary Jacques Marquette joins up with fur trader Louis Joliet, and guess where they were from? Guesses? France. So yes, they were French. Joliet. Very French. It's pronounced Joliet. So in 1673, they go down on an expedition that travels down the Fox, Wisconsin, and Mississippi rivers. They get as far as Arkansas. They run into the Spanish, panic, and turn around. And they are led up the Illinois River to what was known as the Great Chicago Portage at the time. They were led this way by indigenous people. Jacques Marquette actually had spent years learning Illinois indigenous languages, and so he was kind of the translator of the trip, and that's how they were, as white Europeans, able to be taken through what they immediately recognized as a very advantageous route. So if you look in your packet or on your phone, one of the next images will kind of show you a couple images of the Chicago Portage. So the Chicago Portage basically exists because Chicago's waterways are on a continental divide. They bridge a continental divide. Chicago basically sits on what used to be a lake bed. Basically 14,000 years ago, there was a larger Lake Michigan called Lake Chicago. And Chicago is literally built on what used to be glacial lake bed. The suburbs were actually kind of the original shore of that lake. That means in 14,000 years that the Chicago River, I've read it as described as begrudgingly draining the flat lake plain around it, flowed into Lake Michigan, but in enough certain weather conditions with a lot of rain, it would follow the path of least resistance and actually flow the other way into the Mississippi River system. So basically, the Chicago Portage is that distance between the south branch of the Chicago River and the Des Plaines River, which is a tributary of the Mississippi. So this is very important. Now, this area, it was basically about an 8-mile walk between the South Branch and the Des Plaines River. Indigenous people, again, very aware of this. You could basically pick your canoe up, walk 8 miles, and then end up in a different tributary. And that's how you could get, even back then, from New York City all the way, well, not at the time, I guess the Erie Canal didn't exist yet, but New York, state of New York today, all the way down to New Orleans. And Indigenous people use these water routes extensively. Now, the shortcut was actually through something called Mud Lake. Mud Lake could be wet, swampy, frozen, or dry, depending on the season. I'll read you a quote from Gurdon S. Hubbard. This is the who's who of street names tonight, guys. This lake was well named. It was but a scum of liquid mud, a foot or more deep, over which our boats were slid, not floated over. Men wading each side without firm footing, but often sinking deep into this filthy mire, filled with bloodsuckers, which attached themselves in quantities to their legs. 3 days were consumed in passing through this sinkhole of only 1 or 2 miles in length. So yeah, only the white people were dumb enough to walk through this shit. The Indigenous people are like, yeah, we walk around, bro. Carry your canoe. So Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet wrote extensively about their travels, and their writings attracted a number of other Europeans who came to explore the region. René Robert LaSalle, another, where's he from? Guesses? There you go. Easiest one. He claims the Mississippi River Basin, to which he had no authority to do so, for France in 1682. It's not his land, but whatever, sure, France owns it now. And builds Fort St. Louis atop Starved Rock. At the time, this colony attracted, at its peak, 20,000 people, mixed. All of these frontier communities were generally mixed between white Europeans, predominantly French and Canadian fur traders, who would intermarry with indigenous tribeswomen in the area for the purpose of increasing their business trades. I'm sure some of them were in love, but a lot of them were just opportunistic. So many of them, you know, our original settlers of Chicago, all these early communities were actually quite diverse. So LaSalle is said to have stood at the mouth of the Chicago River, having seen Mud Lake and the 8-mile portage, and stated, "This will be the gate of empire, this, the seat of commerce." So Europeans, literally, as soon as they stepped foot through this, were like, we're onto something here. Jean-Baptiste Pontoussaint, who you might recognize from Lakeshore Drive, is the first permanent settler in Chicago, or so they say, who builds a cabin in the 1780s, and a small settlement of mostly, again, fur traders and their indigenous wives has been formed by about 1800. Now, in 1803, the United States purchases from France, who doesn't own it, all of the water that drains into, all of the land that drains into the Mississippi River in something known as Louisiana Purchase, 1803. You remember this from like 7th grade? Yeah. Again, France didn't own it. Neither did America after they bought it. But sure, white people go off. Regardless, they buy it and immediately build Fort Dearborn at the mouth of the Chicago River to protect their investment. Now, remember how I said the Chicago River originally drained into Lake Michigan? It's very important that to protect their investment in the Mississippi River Basin, they built a fort on a river that doesn't drain into the Mississippi River. Because it was such an advantageous position to build the fort. They could literally keep track of anybody using the Chicago Portage by having Fort Dearborn at that location. Now, the entrance to the river at the time, and there is a drawing of that in your packet, was very sandy. It was a really swampy, sandy, lazy river that winded and snaked into Lake Michigan. Today, you know, you go down to the lake and there's like concrete barriers. Those weren't there. in 1803. It was like a lot of sand and swamp and clay and muck, and it was actually kind of hard to reach Lake Michigan at the mouth of the Chicago River because everything was so wet. And it's actually not until 1834 that soldiers finally successfully cut a clear, straight path to Lake Michigan from the mouth of the Chicago River. So for a long time, it was just a kind of swampy mess down there. Now, European settlers are attracted by the fort. They start arriving to Chicago in great numbers. In 1809, the Illinois Territory is formed. There's a lot of scuffles, shall we say, at this time between indigenous people who had been living on this land for hundreds and thousands of bazillions of years and the white people who are like, no, we own it now. We bought it from France. It's really fucking funny when you think about it. The audacity. Regardless, they have a little scuffle called the Battle of Fort Dearborn. 86 Europeans die. It's kind of their fault. The fort is burned and abandoned. But this, along with things like the Black Hawk War in 1832, lead to the United States pursuing aggressive removal of indigenous people around this time. They signed in 1860 the Treaty of St. Louis. It's signed by the Council of Three Fires, a collective of indigenous tribes who had traditionally lived in the area. And in this treaty, they cede a 20-mile strip to the United States between the Des Plaines and Chicago River. Now, this is important. The United States is very carefully acquiring the right to be at the Great Chicago Portage. They've bought it from France. They are convincing indigenous people to sign treaties they don't understand, and they are just generally trying to protect this one tiny little section that would become Chicago, geographically speaking, tiny section, because this whole time, since 1673, I like to imagine them just hearing this little voice in their head going, canal, 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 canal. So they're doing everything that they can. In 1818, Illinois becomes a state, and when they turn the Illinois Territory into Illinois State, they actually raise the northern border of the Illinois Territory to encompass the Chicago River. Because the government, the United States government at the time thinks to themselves, it's going to be easier governmentally to build a canal if it's all in one state. So literally every single European to see Chicago is like, how are we going to make it easy to build a canal here? Now, the state receives congressional support to survey land for a canal through the portage in 1822. So as soon, basically, as possible, they get around to doing this. But the thing that really spurs growth in early Chicago is actually the Erie Canal. I'm fucking obsessed with the Erie Canal. That shit slaps. I want you to look in your packet or online at the image of rates of travel from 1800 to 1830. Okay, this map, I'm obsessed with it. I have turned it into a polymer plate and printed it because I think this map is the most fascinating thing I've ever seen in my life. The Erie Canal opened in 1825. Travel times between New York City and Chicago went from 6 weeks in 1800 to 3 weeks in 1830 because of that damn canal. Fuck yeah, Erie Canal, go off. Now, at this time, you have to understand that the geography of the United States is so that, when you imagine the 13 colonies, you're thinking about that strip right by the Atlantic Ocean. And that is because there's a natural barrier to westward expansion, which is the Appalachian Mountains. And there's actually very few natural passes through the Appalachian Mountains. And one of the most convenient passes was the Hudson River Valley in upstate New York. So when they built the Erie Canal, all of a sudden, instead of having to bump your ass in a wooden Conestoga wagon, I don't know if it was a Conestoga wagon at the time, but that's what I imagine, on wooden wheels over a mountain. Imagine how bad that would hurt your butt, right? Now imagine you can take that same trip in a cushy Erie Canal packet boat, moving at a clip of 5 miles an hour, and it is smooth as silk, baby. All of a sudden, moving west sounds like a really good idea. And so it's pretty easy to all of a sudden get from the overcrowded East Coast through the Appalachian Mountains and onward, and guess where you would end up when you got to the end of the lakes? When you ran out of lake, guess where you ended up? Chicago. Exactly. So the Erie Canal spurs a huge land boom in Chicago because even back then people hated New York. Thank you. I'll be here all night. Sorry, New York, you're fun to visit. Build alleys. In 1830, canal commissioners hire James R. Thompson. You might know him from his center. to sketch out 58 blocks in a new community they dubbed Chicago. And they put them up for sale to basically fund the canal. So the reason I'm obsessed with canal history is literally Chicago wouldn't exist without it. Without the Erie Canal, no one would have moved here except fur traders. And without the canal, we never even would have plotted out land in Chicago. Canal commissioners platted out that land because they wanted to sell it to fund the construction of a canal. The canal is the whole reason we're here. That's the Illinois and Michigan Canal. There's a picture of it in your packet. Right under my favorite map. There's a lot of competition. So 1833 is then a very important year for Chicago. There's a couple things that happen. The Indian Removal Act is passed, relocating all indigenous people forcibly west of the Mississippi River. So all of a sudden, all these skirmishes that have been happening on the frontier are no longer happening because the United States is dumping these people on the Trail of Tears and sending them west of the Mississippi River. Chicago is then incorporated for the first time as a town, 1833, as a town of 200 people. And at the time, this is where we start talking about water and poop. At the time, drinkable lake water is still hard to get because you have to haul yourself through the sand and the sludge to get out to the part of the lake where you can scoop up some water, right? So peddlers would actually fill barrels by doing this and sell them to people in town at a rate of 10 to 25 cents per barrel. A public well was eventually dug in 1834, which marks the city's first attempt at a public water supply. I'll drink to that. Now, the I&M Canal construction finally takes off in 1836. Many of the Irish laborers who dug the Erie Canal come to Chicago to dig the I&M Canal. The expense of the canal is horrendous. There are frequent labor strikes, financial crises, and progress moves along and it's slow as fuck. Now, I truly cannot wrap my head around this, but it is a 96-mile canal from Bridgeport to the Illinois River near Joliet. Joliet. And sorry, Joliet. You have a nice prison. I'm serious. It looks like my water tower. No dynamite. All by hand. Pickaxes, black powder. That's fucking it. 96 miles of that. They're also paid $1 per 16-hour workday. That is about $28 a day today. Yeah. And it's in proprietary canal script, not money. So you can only spend it at stores along the canal, pretty much, which jack up their prices because, like, fuck you, right? It was not fun to be Irish in 1836. Nope. Hey, but at least you're not dying of a potato famine. Right? So Chicago is incorporated as a city the next year in 1837 with a population of 4,000. So again, 1833, 200. 1837, 4,000. That's pretty explosive growth. And continues to grow dramatically. The I&M Canal is finally completed in 1848. And navigationally speaking, it is an incredible achievement. For the first time, you can take your little boat from New York City to New Orleans. There's actually, to this day, something that really avid boaters do, which is called the Great Circle Tour. And you can pick where you do it, basically, because it's a circle. But you can start in Chicago, go down the canal, go all the way around Florida, and come back to Chicago. And that's because of us, motherfuckers. Unfortunately, in 1848, we also get our first railroad. And as it turns out, it's more convenient to build railroads because you can build them wherever the fuck you want. So the canal is important, but at the same time, it's quickly surpassed in transportation regards by the railroad because they're just infinitely more customizable. As Chicago booms in the 1850s, it grows into a major lake port and industrial center. At one point, Chicago was actually the largest port in the United States. Yes, that's true. It's remarkable. And we're inland. Third coast, my ass. So mud becomes a very big problem because, like I said, we're on a flat lake plain and it's swampy as shit, right? So we tell this story at our McKinley Park tour. I make my board president, Erica, say this every single time. A popular story of the time had it that a passerby came upon a man whose head and shoulders protruded from muck in the middle of the street. "Can I help?" asked the passerby. "No, thank you," replied the man. "I have a fine horse under me." I actually just have some pictures of like general muddy conditions in Chicago in your packet. As Chicago lacks natural drainage, again, low, flat, our soil is mostly clay and loam, which don't do anything with water except get squishy. And it's basically impossible to install a gravity-fed sewer system because we have no elevation. So you can't really dig comfortably into the clay to put any kind of sewage system in, and you also don't have gravity on your side. So it's quite the pickle for people at this time. I'll read you a couple funny stories of communities around this time. Steel workers, this is actually a little later, but they settled between Ashland, Archer, and 35th, and, another gin and tonic, look at me.
I want to make sure you can test the sewage here, Patty.
Thank you. It's tonic, it's safe. Steel workers settle in this little area, and they ironically call it Mount Pleasant. It was immediately adjacent to steel mills, and because much of the area was swampy and undrained, standing water bred hordes of mosquitoes, and spring flooding was so severe that many houses were built on stilts. Milwaukee Avenue is another one that comes up on our tours a lot. Milwaukee was an important route for bringing produce and farm goods into the city from rural areas. From Northfield, Illinois, what was a 4-day trip in good weather was an 8-day trip in the mud, and in the spring it was impossible. Y'all get it? Y'all have been through like a parkway in Chicago like last week, right? Like it's rough out here. Due to flooding, a portion of McKinley Park was called Ducktown. Landowners desperate to elevate their holdings invited scavengers to dump ashes as landfill. But unfortunately, when you're asking scavengers to dump stuff in your yard, trash comes with it. Obviously, much of Chicago is made of trash. The lakefront, the Lakeville, Streeterville, all garbage. Now, we're going to take a quick digression, and we're going to talk about managing poop throughout history. We've gotten to the poop portion. You may all drink. Every time that I make a bad poop pun, please drink some of your beverage and be glad it's not water.
I'll need another drink.
So ancient civilizations, the Romans, Asiatic cultures, Mesopotamians, pretty much everybody in ancient cultures would primarily use waste as fertilizer for anyone who is a predominantly farming culture, or you would dump it in a river to have it carried away, very conveniently. That's why all of the great American cities, the great European cities, cities all over the world that are old enough are built along rivers, because it is nature's sewer, baby. Now, if your city got large enough, you were likely to install pit toilets or cesspools. I have some fun diagrams of cesspools in your image packet. There's also a picture of a cesspool in London that they discovered. That's like an archaeological dig going on there. Now, communal cesspools were kind of surprisingly ingenious. They were typically lined with bricks. They were designed to be porous. And basically, the liquid matter of the cesspool would filter out into the soil around the cesspool, be naturally absorbed, and no longer become a problem, leaving behind the solids, the poop, if you will. Now, these solids, at routine intervals, especially in very large cities, would be emptied by people whose job it was to empty the cesspools. They would do it at night because of the smell, and they would cart it out of town for use as fertilizer by the surrounding farms, which is probably the shittiest job I can think of. Thank you. Now, cesspools are kind of interesting. A natural biofilm would actually form in the soil around the cesspool, providing a degree of filtration. But the issue is that people didn't really understand that, like, poop plus drinking, not good at the time. So, unfortunately, if you dug your cesspool too close to a well or you dug it too deep, that poop water would leach into your groundwater, and now you have a really bad problem. The other issue with cesspools is that if it rained or there's a lot of snow melt, they were prone to overflowing. And then you have poop water in your streets, and it's just gross. Now, the other issue that happened is as the Industrial Revolution really took hold at a rapid pace, there were, no water treatment methods, and at a certain point, your city gets so large that the farms around the city are not capable of making use of that much poop. Like, at a certain point, you have exceeded the poop capacity of your neighborhood farms. And this is a problem. Now, let's talk about cholera.
My favorite topic.
You came to this lecture. In the 1830s and 40s, crudely built, poop-crusted, I imagine, those are my words, oak wood sluices and hollowed-out cedar logs carried off the worst of the surface water, human and animal waste, from streets into the river. The same way people have been doing for thousands and thousands of years. You just get it out of the street and into the river. Very convenient. Now, cholera actually originates in the Indian subcontinent. Obviously, there was a lot of wars and movement happening there in the 19th century, so cholera moved from the Indian subcontinent to Europe to New York via immigrants, and then the first people to carry it to Chicago were soldiers fighting in the Black Hawk War of 1832. Now, it's really important to understand that now we know that you get cholera from drinking poop water. But at the time, nobody knew why people were getting sick and dying super quickly and super violently. It just felt like a mysterious act of God. They don't know. They don't have pathogen science. Be nice to them. Now, cholera makes a very big grand entrance in 1848 in Chicago and, quote, frightened the people so much they left the city very rapidly. It would sweep the city periodically for the next 2 decades. There was another serious outbreak for 2 months in the summer of 1850. It returned in August of 1851 for another 2 months. It returned in July of 1852, this time for 4 months. And then there were no outbreaks in 1853. And everybody's like COVID 2021. They're like, are we cool? Are we good? And then again in 2022. 1854. Scattered cases of cholera in April, and the city's like, we don't have a cholera outbreak. By July, people are dying at a rate of 60 people a day. The death cart was seen continually in the streets. People fled the city among hearses and and coffins, and by the outbreak, cholera had killed more than 5% of the Chicago population, almost 1,500 people. As a comparison, I've been comparing to COVID because it's like the pandemic I've lived through, and COVID killed 5.7% of the United States population by April of 2020. And so that feeling where you're like, maybe you know someone who died of COVID, or maybe you know someone who knows someone who died of COVID. I keep saying cholera. That's the feeling that a Chicagoan would have had in 1854 about cholera. It's roughly the same percentage of people. So one thing noticed very early on is that the river wards. Now the river's disgusting, keep this in mind. So living by the river was not fashionable. There is no Lincoln Yards. People are like, that shit's gross, fuck no. And they were mostly populated by low-class immigrants, and these were the areas that were most likely to suffer from cholera outbreaks. In 1854, prominent Chicago physician John Rauch, there's a picture of him in the packet on the page that's got 2 pictures of white men. Prominent Chicago physician John Rauch noted that the disease was chiefly confined to immigrants, of whom large numbers were attacked and died almost immediately on reaching the city. Like, you immigrated from fucking Germany or some shit. You spent 40 days on a boat, and then you spent another 10 days getting through the Erie Canal and the Great Lakes. You arrive in Chicago and drop dead of cholera. Drink alcohol. That's literally, but that is literally why people would drink beer, because the fermentation process kills a lot. Now, Chicago starts playing a guessing game. I titled this section of my notes, Guessing Game. Is it the dead people's fault? So in 1843, the Chicago City Cemetery is established north of the city's boundary. Does anyone want to guess what the north boundary of Chicago was in 1843? North Avenue. Very clever. What do you think Western was? Okay. Actually, very true story. Western Avenue was the western boundary at one point, and when they named California, they were like, well, what's west of Western? I'm not kidding. I am fucking dead serious. Okay. So the city cemetery is established north of the city. It's divided into sections. There's a Catholic section, there's a Jewish section, and there's the Potter's Field. Now, the Potter's Field is a term that was used very commonly around this time in history in the mid-1800s. Basically, potters would dig for clay, and where there were a bunch of ready-made holes, that's a great place to dump your dead people. But very specifically, your dead people that didn't have money to have a nice cemetery plot and a headstone and all that jazz. If you know where Lincoln Park's baseball diamonds are, that's roughly where the Potter's Field was. I made a little map in your pamphlet that will kind of show you roughly the location of the Potter's Field. Unfortunately, because so many people were poor, there were mass graves. It's really hard for us to know exactly how many people were buried in the Potter's Field. Estimates range from 10,000 to 25,000. Fun fact about me, my great-grandmother, yes, I was raised in Texas, but like my people are corn people. My great-grandmother was buried in the Potter's Field because my great-grandfather didn't have any money. It's okay. It's your lecture too. Sorry. See, you distracted me. Whisper, bitches. Okay. It's fine, I know them. Internet people. Now, so my great-grandmother was buried in the Potter's Field because my great-grandfather didn't have enough money, and then he saved up all his pennies, and he bought like the shittiest lot in Montrose Cemetery and exhumed her and buried her there, which is pretty fun for me, but anyway. Regardless, so the Potter's Field was the graveyard for the poor and disenfranchised. We don't know how many people were buried there, perhaps as many as 25,000, perhaps about 10 to 12 acres based on some math I did. I went to art school, so take it with a grain of salt. Now, as you can imagine, because of what I told you, those river wards were full of a bunch of people that were low-class immigrants that had just gotten to the city, right? They didn't have money to be buried in a nice family plot. So 200 cholera victims in July of 1854 alone were buried in this marshy swampland near the river's edge that was the Potter's Field. Now, in 1859, Dr. John Rauch, him again, begins calling for the lakefront cemeteries to be closed. He has a theory. He fears that corpses were oozing disease into Lake Michigan and contaminating the air. In 1864, an ordinance is issued to end burials in the city cemetery, except in lots that it had already sold, and to turn the north end into what is now known as Lincoln Park. Eventually, the Lincoln Park Commission removed all of the bodies. They didn't get them all.
There's a couple there.
The Couch Tomb is the most famous tomb that's still in Lincoln Park, but trust me, if you take a shovel in Lincoln Park, you'll probably find an archaeological dig site before you know it. Regardless, people don't really follow this ordinance in 1864. In fact, a bunch of prisoners of war from the Civil War, Confederate soldiers, 4,000 of them are buried in the Potter's Field after they told people to stop burying people there. The ordinance was then reinforced in 1865, and they were like, no, guys, literally, please stop. So there were private families, like my family, that were working very hard to get their relatives out. The city was paying for the relocation of people. And so it was very hodgepodge, but they were really trying for several decades to get everybody out of what would become Lincoln Park. Rauch would go on to hold a number of very significant positions in the city's health department, sanitation departments. He was a good guy. He really cared about you guys not dying. Now, the same year as that massive cholera outbreak of 1854, something very important happens. Dr. John Snow, a London doctor, notices that 500 fatal cases of cholera attacked one neighborhood in Soho, London. And he eventually traces these outbreaks all back to one solitary street water pump. He has the city remove the handle of the street water pump, and the cholera cases disappear overnight. This provides confirmation for the medical community and for a shitload of very suspicious Chicagoans that poop water is making you sick, or the water is making you sick, so you better drink Schlitz, baby! Okay.
That's right.
And this is not the only innovation at the time that finally connects the dots between certain diseases that are plaguing cities that feels so scary at the time. I mean, do you guys remember the early days of COVID where it was like, I was driving for Grubhub at the time. I was like covering my steering wheel in saran wrap because I didn't know how I was going to get COVID. Like, and this is what cholera feels like for people in 1854. But they also feel that way about typhoid. It's not until 1873 that typhoid fever is specifically traced by Dr. William Budd of Bristol, England, to a toxin present in poop. And that the contamination of water by poop is the reason everyone's getting typhoid. Similarly, dysentery, or the bloody flux. Yeah, right? Killed, that's where you shit yourself to death if you don't know what dysentery is. 1,600 Chicagoans died of the bloody flux, or dysentery, between 1854 and 1860. It's actually a Japanese doctor. I'm probably going to butcher this name, so I apologize, but Kiyoshi Shiga finally identifies its bacterial agent in 1898. Outbreaks remained common for decades. People in the fucking Vietnam War were struggling. Soldiers from America in the Vietnam War were struggling from dysentery. You know, honestly, the Chicago Fair of 1833 was like threatened by this, actually afflicted by this massive dysentery outbreak. So it's like you take for granted, you're like, yeah, don't drink poop water. But back in the day, you had no transparency about where your water was coming from, and you didn't know why everyone you knew was shitting themselves to death. But eventually, you know, science catches up with it, and you start to be able to connect the dots. So connecting the dots was imperative. We all know governments love red tape. It took a lot of time and medical proof for cities, including Chicago, to start connecting the dots and being like, we need to do something about getting people clean water. The first sewer system. Gin's always been safe. It's the alcohol. It kills the germs. That's where you should drink when you're sick. Just kidding. Okay. Now, in 1855, the Chicago Board of Sewage Commissioners was created, and their purpose was to supervise sewage and drainage operations and, very importantly, plan a coordinated sewage system for the future. Now, I know that you guys are really interested in the first sewage system because I've already gotten the first person falling asleep in the front row. Now, systematic plans for sewage disposal were completely unheard of by Americans at this point in time. So it's very important to acknowledge that, like, you're like, yeah, sewer systems, duh. But, like, again, this didn't exist until Chicago invented it. I'm so sorry, there's a lot left. So engineer Ellis S. Chesborough, henceforth referred to as Sewage Daddy. He's next to John Rauch. He's the cute one in your pamphlet.
Oh,
there he is.
Isn't he cute? He's a looker. Whew.
this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's cute. He's
I
cute.
like him. He's bald.
Yeah. No, that's Rauch. Sorry. Now, Ellis S. Chesborough, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right, had engineered water systems in Boston and was appointed to create a plan for drainage that would improve the city's water supply. So they hire the best guy in Boston, and they're like, figure out our shitty problem. Now, his plan is twofold. The first part of his plan is to raise the overall grade of the city, allowing the installation of gravity-aided sewage systems to be installed under the city functionally. So what they would do is they would lay the sewer systems down the existing streets and then just fill in a bunch of mud and soil and sand around the new pipes, and ta-da, new street level. So this was very effective. They would then construct new paved streets on top. So it was very effective for also paving streets because, as you saw in some of those earlier pictures of the packet, lots of very swampy, muddy streets at the time. So it was a twofold operation. It's like, we're going to raise the grade of the city to allow for sewage operations, and at the same time pave the street. So it's kind of a win-win. Now, the second idea was that they would raise the properties to meet the new higher street level. And what people do, you basically would take a bunch of jacks and crank up your house and fill in a new masonry foundation underneath. And ta-da, now your streets are between 4 to 5 feet higher, but as much as 16 feet higher in certain communities. Now, here's the thing. Street raisings were public projects. The city of Chicago was paying to install those sewers and those new paved streets and the new sidewalks. That's what they were doing. But if you were an individual property owner, it was your responsibility to raise your home to the new street level. Now, I'm going to start with commercial properties. Especially those downtown, they had the money to lift their buildings rather quickly and without much disturbance to the buildings inside. There's some great pictures in your packet for this. In January of 1858, the first masonry building in Chicago was raised, 4 stories tall, 70 feet long, weighing 750 tons. Situated at the northeast corner of Randolph Street in Dearborn, it was lifted on 200 jack screws to its new grade, which was 6 feet 2 inches higher than the old one, and I quote, without serious injury to the building. In 1860, now you actually have a picture of this in your packet. In 1860, a consortium of 6 engineers, including George Pullman, haunter of lectures, treater of his workers like shit, George Pullman. He was one of 6 people that co-managed a project to raise half of a city block on Lake Street all at the same time. The whole one side of the block on Lake Street between Clark and LaSalle.
Oh, that's
Isn't that wild? It was a solid masonry row of shops, office, printeries, etc., 320 feet long, 4 to 5 stories tall. They weren't even all the same height. With a footprint taking up 1 acre of space and an estimated weight, including sidewalks, of 35,000 tons. Times 2,000. That's like so many fucking zeros. They lifted it all at once, using a team of 600 men with 6,000 jack screws. Businesses operated in these premises were not closed down during operation. The buildings were being raised. People came, went, shopped, and worked in them as they would normally do. It is said to have been so gradual that there are stories of people holding tea parties or going about their business only to find they had to go down more stairs than they had to when they walked in.
Whoa.
It was basically like, imagine like 6,000 guys and one dude being like, screw, like that. I don't know what they yelled, but like that's it, just 6,000 people, coordinated movements, just an inch at a time. Fuck. On New Year's Day of 1859, the Chicago Tribune reported, within the past year, from 50 to 60 brick stores in blocks of 2 to 5 to 7 in number have thus been raised. So that's commercial properties. But like, do we have some homeowners in the house? I'm sorry, shit sucks. I recently became one. It's only part of a building. Okay. Residential properties were raised more slowly. It took over a period of 2 decades, and in some ways, it's still going on. So instead of paying for this costly process of hiring all these people to jack up your house, many homeowners, particularly those in working class neighborhoods, would just build a bridge or stairs from their second story leading to the new street grade, and then you end up with that half sunken apartment. Has anybody lived in a garden apartment? I'm making time for you. Go, go. Anybody lived in a garden apartment? That's a direct result of street raising, because a lot of those apartments were half submerged because they were between 4 and 16 feet below the new street grade, and you just built a little bridge or a little staircase or what have you. Now, if you had a lightweight wood structure, the most common thing to do was to actually just move your entire house And then just move it to like the edge of Chicago where there was a new street grade already and just build a new masonry foundation underneath. There's a picture of that in your packet as well. The practice of doing so was so common at the time as to be considered, and I quote, nothing more than routine traffic. Can you imagine like just going down the Kennedy and there's a fucking house on wheels? Now, you can find evidence of this street raising literally all over Chicago. If you go to Wicker Park, Pilsen, Bridgeport, McKinley Park, very heavily on the south side, very heavily in those industrial residential communities, you will find houses. There's a picture in your packet of Walcott Street, or Winchester, I think, actually, that shows you like houses, some with staircases, some have filled it in, some you drop down, and that is evidence of that. Hold on. I lost my microphone.
I can see it.
Please hold. Please hold. Oop, here we go. We'll get it. This is really entertaining. Here, just talk amongst yourselves. We're going to figure this out. Okay, perfect. You guys are doing great. Okay, back in business. Maybe. Okay. Back in business. All right. Now, this street raising process, like I said, if you were a residential property owner, you just kind of played it by ear. Maybe you moved your house. Maybe you built a new staircase. It didn't really matter. You'd figure it out. Now, yeah, so head down to the south side, head down to the southwest side, come to our McKinley Park tour, come to our Pilsen tour, come to our Wicker Park tour. You'll see all evidence of street raising. And if you see that, now you can confidently know that building was built a long time ago. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the evidence of street raising, especially that which happened downtown, burned down. I don't know if you guys know, but there was a really big fire that happened here.
What?
Really big fire.
Is that another
1871. And so unfortunately, all this hard work that we did raising new buildings to a new street grade fucking burned down. And we're going to talk more about the fire in 2 seconds here. First, I'll take a little break. I promised you a lot of poop puns, but they really kind of come in the next section.
There hasn't been enough yet.
I'm so sorry. Here's the thing. I'm trying to go top level, and then I'll flush out the details in a bit.
Oh, no. Oh.
Shout out to my brother-in-law for that one. This next section of my notes I've titled Success, sort of. Now, Poop Daddy, Ellis Chesborough, the Chesborough sewers, as they became called, used one set of pipes to funnel every bit of wastewater. So whether it was runoff, rain, or sewage, it all went into the same central set of pipes. If you look in your packet, you'll see a diagram of what's known as a CSO, or a combined sewer overflow, or more easily remembered as combined shit and other, CSO. Combined shit and other. Combined sewer overflow, but combined shit and other, that's probably what you're going to remember. Okay. The system was initially successful. So they raised the streets, they built these new sewers, and initially it was pretty successful. The river must have been pretty inoffensive for the first years after the sewers were installed. I mean, keep in mind, people's tolerance for just garbage, trash, and human waste was much higher than what our tolerance is today. Like, y'all see poop on the L platform, and you're like, ew, this ruined my day. Like, keep in mind, you know it's true. In 1871, if there was no poop on the L platform, you'd be like, oh! Just kidding. The L actually didn't come around until the 1890s, but still. It was probably covered in shit then. It's honestly continuity in history. Unfortunately, the river soon became... No, too soon.
Just a little number 3 for you.
Too soon.
No, I'll take your number 1.
Thank you. Fuck. She knows I Ubered here.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
It's also my birthday tomorrow, so.
I hope it's shitty.
Thank you. It has been shitty so far. No, I'm joking. It's actually been wonderful. I like to give lectures on my birthday about stuff that's so fucking boring on paper that people are like, why are you talking about that? And I'm like, because Why start a nonprofit unless to force 50 people to listen to you talk about shit? Okay. Last year I talked about farms. Man, I put some people to sleep with that one. All right. Now, in 1864, a little problem helps. A little problem happens. Doesn't help. It does help pollute the river, but a little problem happens. The Chicago Union Stockyards open 15 miles outside of the city center at the time. Pershing and Halstead today. There's still a Stockyards gate you can go look at. By its peak in the 1920s, the Chicago Stockyards employed 40,000 people and processed 19 million animals a year. They produce a lot of waste, as you might guess. Upton Sinclair wrote a whole fucking book about it, which they just dump into a portion of the South Branch known as Bubbly Creek. Carcasses, eyeballs, bones, fat, oil, skin, hooves, whatever you couldn't make use of, just throw it in the river. It's the sewer. Now, before you are like super judging the people that ran the stockyards in 1864, keep in mind that like at this point in human history, funneling your waste into the river was the most effective way to dispose of it. So, you know, give them a grain of salt, but yeah, it was a pretty shitty thing to do. Decomposing animal matter would release carbon dioxide bubbles as big as 3 feet across. The water was so thick, it looked like you could walk across. If you look in the packet, there's pictures of a chicken standing on the sludge, and then people would watch the chickens walk across and then think that they could walk across. It was not mud. Again, Chicagoans just assumed everything was mud at this point, but no, this was literally a river of shit and decomposing crap. Now, you could go down to Bubbly Creek today. I actually recommend it. Go to the bridge right by the Bridgeport Art Center. Stand over that railing and look in that water, and you will see what is today, very tastefully, little champagne bubbles rising to the surface. To this day, there is that much decomposing animal matter at the bottom of Bubbly Creek. I'm going to read you a great quote. Findley Peter Dunn wrote in the Chicago Journal, "'Twas the prettiest river to look at that you'll ever see. Green at the sausage factory, blue at the soap factory, yellow at the tannery. You'd not trade it for anything." It was a rainbow river. Now, remember how at this point in time, the Chicago River drains into what? Lake Michigan. And where do we get our drinking water? Lake Michigan. The intake point at this point in history was very close to the Chicago River. It actually pulled from just 150 feet into the lake, which meant that the water supply was often polluted, or very hilariously, like I knew it was polluted when I went to research this. I did not expect to read a pamphlet about how many fucking fish would come through the pipes, because they didn't have any kind of screen or filtering system on the intake. So like you would get a bunch of poop and fish every time you turned on the faucet. That's like what I imagined. Probably not by the time you got to the faucet, but I just really like the idea of just like getting water and it's just poop and fish. They tried to fix this, they fail, and pretty soon in 1861, they go back to sewage daddy, Ellis Chesbrough, and they say, hey, can you fix this too? He's already raised an entire city by 4 to 16 feet and installed the world, like, I don't know, at least the nation's first CSO, combined shit and other sewage system. He's already done so much, and in 1861, they're like, can you figure this out too? So he recommends they build a 5-foot wide tunnel, pics in your packet, dug into the clay 60 feet under the lake to a water intake point located 2 miles offshore. They love this idea. The intake point offshore, they build a little structure around it with a screen and with monitoring so you wouldn't get so many fish. Construction, they love this idea. Construction begins in 1863. They begin work on the crib in 1864. Workers worked 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, because we still didn't have work-life balance, y'all. And clay was taken away on railroad cars drawn by mules. Masons lined the tunnel with bricks. One crew set out from Chicago's water tower, one from the crib, and when they met in the middle, the city's movers and shakers took a ride through it. December 6th of 1866 is when that tunnel was completed. Water was pumped from the water intake crib through the tunnel up to the Chicago pumping station. You've all seen it. It's on Michigan Avenue. You know the American Girl doll store? It's right there. They would pump it up. The tunnel would take you right to that pumping station, up that water tower, and into your pipes. No fish. Fucking great. Very little pollution. Now, this worked pretty well until 1866, which you'll recognize is actually the same year that the tunnel opened, when Chicago suffered yet another cholera epidemic. Noted Chesborough at the time, sewer dowdy, the effect of discharging the contents of the sewer into the river was gradually manifested by increasing its discoloration and offensiveness, and thus affecting the lake, so that when the water supply to the city was more and more complained of. No shit, Sherlock. Yes, shit, Sherlock.
Should we not poop where we drink?
As it turns out, by 1866, they probably should have known don't shit where you eat, but regardless. Great Chicago Fire. When did it happen? 1871. What month? October, what day? 8th to 10th. I'll give a bonus point to anyone who said 10th. You should all fucking know this. The one date, October 8th, 1871, your whole city burned down, and we haven't gotten over it.
I have not gotten over it.
Sorry guys, I've had 2 gin and tonics.
You have 3 right there.
It's a lot.
Oh, sorry, did I say that?
At midnight of October 8th, the fire, and I quote, swept thickly over the river, drifting upon housetops and drying the wooden buildings. The gas works caught fire and explodes, igniting the debris and oil in the Chicago River. You think the water is going to stop your river? Hell no, bitch. You still think so. It is estimated in the burning of the Great Chicago Fire that 15,000 lead service pipes melted. The city lost half of its water meters, it lost a pumping station, and they had no water for 8 days. Schlitz Brewery sent down fresh barrels of water and Schlitz. And the reason that Chicagoans love Schlitz is because they saved us from the fire.
Yeah, Schlitz.
Safer to drink beer. They also lost all of their records, so locating leaks was very difficult because they no longer had maps. But the good news of the fire is that we could kind of start over with the sewer system and do it better this time. And so they also required post-fire construction that all new buildings be connected all new dwellings had to be constructed and connected to the sewers. So the fire sucked, but it also allowed us to kind of build an even more comprehensive combined shit and other. Now, at this point, we've recognized that the Chicago River is full of shit, and that I am also full of shit, and that the river is polluting the lake, and that's why everyone's still getting cholera. So they have this genius idea, the Illinois-Michigan Canal, or the IM Canal. It's still there. It's only 6 feet deep, and if you've ever seen it, which I encourage you to do, go to Lockport, go to some town that it's the best thing that ever happened to them, and just Ottawa will work. Go and look at it. The I&M Canal is dinky as fuck, and it was super shallow. It only had to float just like pitty little canal boats pulled by mules. It wasn't this massive. I mean, it was still 96 miles blasted through bedrock by Irish immigrants without dynamite, but as significant as it wasn't big enough. And it's very polluted at this point. And so what they start doing is near where the canal meets the South Branch, they start digging it out. And they install pumps. And they realize that if the Chicago River has enough water in it, they can actually get the Chicago River to flow into the canal, which empties out some of that worst, nastiest offal from Bubbly Creek, and it just sends it downstream. And so they try to do this, but unfortunately, the canal's just not deep enough. It's not big enough. The pumps, no matter how many they install in 1871, they just cannot get the river to fully reverse. They are stuck with all of their shit. And in the North Branch, things are worse. I quote, "The water remained standing with the yearly accretions, during the hot months converted into a cesspool, seething, boiling, and reeking with filth, which fills the north wards of the city with noxious gases, and the south branch has become fully as foul. Now, by 1872, we're also having an issue with water supply. Our original tunnels are just not big enough, and we keep having this problem where pollution gets into the lake and it just keeps getting further and further out. So our genius idea is to keep building water cribs. There's a little picture of a water crib. If you don't know what that is, it's the weird thing in the lake that you think is a boat. So we built a bunch of them. There's actually a screenshot of Wikipedia in my picture pamphlet here that shows you when the water cribs were built and how far out and in what year. And we kept building them, and we kept trying to build water cribs further and further away from the pollution, to the point that right before the 1893 World's Fair, we are so desperate to provide these million-some-odd visitors to Chicago for the 1893 World's Fair. We are like, we have to give them clean water, or what are they going to think of us? And we build a water crib 4 miles out, just for the fair, so that we don't have to embarrass ourselves giving everyone at the fair cholera. So we just keep doing this. This is our solution. Not clean the river, but let's just keep building water intake cribs further and further into the lake. Between 1865 and 1935, the city constructed 8 water cribs, quickly drained reservoirs, pumping stations, and increasingly larger, deeper tunnels, all considered major engineering feats of their day. We were seriously good with this shit, you guys. Thank you. Despite this, cholera returns. 1873 kills 116 people. The Board of Health measured the duration of disease from first symptoms to death at 11 hours.
Oh, man. That's nasty.
It struck hardest where sanitary laws were not observed, they reported, particularly south of 37th Street and west of State Street, an area densely populated consisting of Germans, Swedes, and Poles. My people. That setback gets sewer daddy Ellis Chesborough thinking. And he decides he's going to reverse the Chicago River. I'll drink to that. Yes, please, go get yourself another drink. Not water, please. I actually am going to drink a little water.
You're going to get another drink here soon. So.
Well, I know. So the good news is that I do actually know that the story of the ending of the story is fairly positive. I haven't put anyone else to sleep, so we should be good. We doing okay?
Oh, yeah.
I know I've been talking about shit for a while. The river reversal. The river reversal, I can't state this enough. The Chicago River is the only river that has been reversed by man-made means ever. Oh my God, water?
I heard you.
Is this it?
That's vodka, be careful.
Yeah, you never know.
Did you spit in it?
Just a little bit for you.
Just don't poop in it. It is the only river in all of human history that has been mechanically reversed and stayed that way. We're the only ones. We're the only ones fucking stupid enough to try this shit.
Successfully.
By 1881, the Board of Health claimed that Chicago had the 3rd lowest death rate in the world amongst cities of 500,000. Large-scale cholera outbreaks had become less common, with death rates falling behind that of peer cities like New York City and Boston. But pollution and fear remained a massive issue. A large storm in 1889 prompted fears of widespread cholera outbreaks, coupled with the addition, in 1889, we went on an annexation spree, and we gobbled up Jefferson Park Township, Lakeview Township, Hyde Park Township. Chicago added 133 square miles to its footprint in one go in 1889. So all of a sudden, the demand for our water also increases dramatically.
That's a word. Keep going.
Yes, thank you. Typhoid hits us in 1891. 2,000 people died. The Chicago 1893 World's Fair is threatened. And in 1892, they start work on the much shorter I&M Canal is 96 miles. The Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal, which exists today, is only 28 miles, so more efficient route. I don't really know. I can't wrap my head around why you can go from 96 dug by pickaxes to 28 dug with explosives. But regardless, there's a picture in your packet or online. You can see a picture of the I&M Canal. Look how tiny it is. Right next to it, you can see a picture of the much bigger Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. That's the bridge on Kedzie. I would know. I used to work there. The Sanitary and Ship Canal, or as tour guides across Chicago say, the Sanitary and Shit Canal, construction started in 1892 and was completed in 1900. It was 3 times the size of the I&M Canal. And it successfully and permanently reverses the direction of the Chicago River over the Continental Divide. Since its grand opening in 1900, in January 1st of 1900, the Chicago River has flowed into the Mississippi River system, and it still does to this day. It, again, is the only river that has been reversed by man-made methods in the entire fucking world. And it's been that way since 2024 minus 1900. 1,000 years?
24.
No. Whatever. I went to art school, you guys. Fuck. Now, the digging of this canal was also significant. Remember how I said the Erie Canal diggers came and dug the I&M Canal? The people that dug Chicago's Sanitary and Shit Canal went down to Panama and dug the Panama Canal. It trained an entire generation of water engineers and canal diggers and canal planners. And without the Chicago Sanitary and Shit Canal, there would be Ship Canal. There would be no Panama Canal. One of the chief engineers, Isham Randolph, he actually was such a dorky civil engineer that he wrote a whole poem about the canal. It's amazing. You should read it. Now, this is the oldest tour guide joke in the book. If you have been on a Chicago River tour, of which I used to give, you have heard this joke. The joke is we reversed the direction of the river. We sent all of our sewage down to St. Louis, who bottled it up and sold it back to us as Budweiser. Yeah. You may think, the fine people that trained me at Wendella Boats for that one. But don't worry, you can take a riverboat tour with literally any tour guide and they will make the same joke. Now, Chesbro, Sewer Daddy, didn't even get to see the successful implementation of his idea to reverse the river. He left Chicago, I read this in a source, in a huff around 1879 and died in 1886. The canal opened in 1900. He never got to see it. Oh. He solved all of Chicago's problems for decades and ensured that all of us have a relatively clean water supply, and didn't even get to see us reverse the river, which was his idea. Big ideas. Let's give it up for Ellis Chesbro, Sewage Daddy, for not only raising our city streets, but also reversing our fucking river. Like, this man, I feel like this dude was probably, it's the 1890s, right? He's high on drugs. He's fucking smoking opium probably, and he shows up at work and he's like, dude, I got the craziest idea, it just might work. Nobody has mechanically reversed a river, like, since, really. Like, that man was on drugs. Okay. I don't know that for sure. Now, I'm getting to the last section of my notes for those of you that are sleepy because I'm talking about shit. This section is called New Channels and Continued Improvement. Not Chicago, unfortunately we don't invent this, but the United States in 1890 in Worcester, Massachusetts, invents the first sewage treatment plant. So it's not until 1890 that humans start moving past the idea of a cesspool or a river to treat your poop. In 1898, we begin combining all of these crazy tunnel systems we built into one, and that system, which was combined in 1898, is functionally the same sewer system you have under your feet today. Right? Isn't that crazy? We built some new channels. So at the beginning of this lecture, I mentioned the North Branch Pumping Station in my neighborhood of Albany Park. From the North Branch Pumping Station, just north of that, which that's at Lawrence Avenue in the river, that's basically where the Chicago native North Branch, which just does some wiggles and some squiggles all the way up to the Skokie Lagoons and the headwaters of the Chicago River. It does its thing. And then in Albany Park, at River Park, you can go there. It's amazing. I highly recommend. There's another channel that was cut between 1907 and 1910, which leads straight up to basically the Baha'i Temple. And this channel was dug to flush out that super noxious, gross North Branch of the Chicago River, because when they reversed the river, all it really did was pull Lake Michigan water through the main stem and down the South Branch. So all of the Northsiders like me still got stuck with all the polluted shit and the Rainbow River north of the fork. So the North Shore Channel was dug first, 8 miles, and diluted all the water, got some fresh Lake Michigan water into the system from the North Branch and flushed it all out. In 1922, the 16-mile Calumet-Sag Channel was completed, which reversed the direction of the Calumet rivers. So we don't have just two. We don't have just one reversed river in Chicago. We actually have two. I'm losing things. It's fine. We're good. We're good. So in 1922, we reversed our second river, and we also built our first sewage treatment plant in 1922. We began very quickly building 6 more additional water reclamation plants. That's what we call them, water reclamation plants. We don't just call them poop treatment centers. But we also started laying a bunch of pipes because, as I mentioned, the combined shit and other system that we have, or the CSO, takes all of the storm water, the rainwater, and your poop water, and your laundry water, and all of your water, and it puts it into the same sewer system and dumps it right out into the river. So in the 1920s, they began building diversion tunnels that will actually take all that water and divert it to the wastewater treatment plant before it ends up in the river. All your poop still ends up in the river. The difference is that today, and since the 1920s, your poop water is treated at a water treatment facility before it goes back in the river, which is good for the fish, and it's good for us, and it's good for everyone. Disinfection is first introduced between 1912 and 1916. We start adding chlorine to our water supply at the pumping stations. We start experimenting with filtration in 1928. And in 1930, we decide to build a major giant water treatment plant on the south side. Unfortunately, because of World War II and the Great Depression, it doesn't get completed until 1947. That is the Stickney plant. Today, it is the largest facility of its kind in the fucking world.
All right.
I've been to Stickney. Stickney slaps. Give it up for Stickney.
Yeah.
Now, here's a funny tidbit about Michigan and Wisconsin. In Indiana, they start to get pretty annoyed because they realize that Chicago is taking 8,500 cubic feet per second of Lake Michigan water out of their water source and using it to functionally flush the toilet that is the Chicago River. And they take us to court about it. And in 1930, in 1930, the Supreme Court decides on the case and decides that the city of Chicago has to install locks. So if you go to a Navy pier today, or if you go on a boat tour and you go out to the lake, you will pass through a lock or a series of gates that control how much water from Lake Michigan actually enters the Chicago River. So basically, we installed a flush valve on our toilet. After World War II, it's actually not until we start building the suburbs that we get and by we I actually mean the entire United States, we realize that CSO, or combined shit and other, combined sewer overflow systems are problematic because it's actually much easier to treat runoff and rainwater and release it into the river than it is to treat poop water, right? So suburban communities are built with separate sewage lines for sewage versus stormwater. Chicago to this day still has a CSO, and unfortunately all the cities that copied us do as well. So if you're a suburban community in the 1950s, you separate those two things and it's easier, and your system doesn't get overwhelmed as quickly because you're not trying to treat sewage water and rainwater the same way. Now, the issue the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, the MWRD, we're about to talk about them. That was your password for tonight. The MWRD, they try so hard. Every single time that you get in your head, like, what a horrible idea it is that we're still to this day releasing sewage into the Chicago River, keep in mind that the alternative is for that sewage water to back up into your basement. And so the MWRD has two horrible choices. And they decide that constituents elect them, and it is smarter to dump the trash in the river than it is to dump the trash in your basement. So dumping sewage into the river isn't great, but it's our backup plan, because when we get a crazy volume of snowmelt or rainwater, we have the best sewage treatment facilities in the fucking world, and we still can't treat it fast enough. And so their mitigation strategy is to fucking open those old pipes, baby, right at the North Branch pumping station, right where this brick came from, and they just let it loose into the river, because it is better to have a shitty river for a couple days than it is to have 4,000 people on the northwest side complaining that a bunch of sewage backed up into their basement. Now, the modern thing today is to install a check valve, which is a little valve on your sewage pipes that basically doesn't allow water to come back up. It only allows it to go out. I completely understand why homeowners want to install check valves, but unfortunately, that means the one person on your street that doesn't install a check valve is getting all of your poop in their basement. So, it's better to put it in the river. Don't feel that bad. We've been putting poop in rivers since literally humans were invented. It's okay. We're actually going to get to that. Now, by the late 1960s, sewage overflow events were taking place an average of 100 days per year. So we decide that this is a really big problem, and we come up with the TARP, the Tunnel and Reservoir Plan, also known as the Deep Tunnel Project, in 1972. Hell yeah. The Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, which is formed in 1889 with the sole goal of reversing the Chicago River. And do you know when one of your coworkers gets fired and now you have 3 jobs? That's the MWRD, but since 1889. So they have 3 jobs. We're going to talk about that. But regardless, the MWRD adopts the TARP project in 1972. It is the country's largest public works project for pollution and flood control. It covers a 370-mile combined sewer area, including Chicago and 51 suburbs. Construction began in 1975 and is set to be completed in 2029. But because this is Chicago, I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah, your Kennedy project's going to take 3 years. I actually don't mean to shit on the TARP. It's awesome. It includes 4 tunnel systems, 110 miles of tunnels. All of those tunnels are 8 to 33 feet in diameter. That original tunnel that they took the joyride through on December of 1866 was 6 feet wide. These are between 8 to 33 feet in diameter. There's pictures in your packet. 150 to 300 feet underground. They had to develop new tunneling systems to even be able to create these tunnels. They are incredible resources. We have 3 massive reservoirs that are part of the TARP project. Those reservoirs, the smallest, can hold 11 soldier fields.
That's pretty small.
We actually use, I know, it's the smallest in the NFL, but 12 of them. The first portion of the system began functioning in 1981. The first phase, which was all the tunnels, was completed in 2006. Final phase 2029. Current capacity is 11 billion gallons. And when complete, it will have a total capacity of 17.5 billion gallons of combined shit and other. Since the tunnels were completed in 2006, so the halfway point of the project, sewage overflow events have been cut in half. We only have 50 days a year that we shit in the river. Thornton Reservoir, in particular, has completely eliminated these days in its service area. But unfortunately, we realized, again, we started this project in 1975, and we've realized because of global warming, because we are getting so many more massive rainfall events, that by the time the TARP is completed, it will be inadequate. We are chasing a dream that will never realize itself, because unfortunately, we keep getting more water, and we keep having to treat that water right alongside our sewage. And unless you guys want to have literally every single city street in the city of Chicago torn up for a period of will probably be 57 years, we are stuck with our combined our combined sewer overflow system. Obviously, suburbs figured it out. They started building cities in the 1950s. It's fucking easier. What a shitty ending to a 50-year-old saga. I wrote that in my notes. Now, I talked to you guys a lot about shit, and I know that there's one question on your mind. Can we swim in the river? I know that I have asked you, I've told you all about how disgusting the river is, and all of you are thinking, but can I swim in it? I'm here to tell you. In the 1900s, again, the Chicago River is reversed in 1900. In the 1900s, Chicagoans are so amazed by all this fresh Chicago River water flowing into their river that they wanted to swim in it. In 1908, the Illinois Athletic Club, today you probably know of them as like the Illinois Athletic Club. It's a building for School of the Art Institute of Chicago, represent. They organized the first Chicago River Marathon. For more than 2 decades, there's a picture in your packet, it's the last picture. It drew thousands of spectators to watch swimmers race from the mouth of the river all the way to Jackson on the South Branch. Now, I know that marathon runners love a risk, but that is some very risky shit. But there's a reason, like, how many of you would swim in the river today? Okay, you guys shouldn't, and this is It remains a joke, and here's why. First, though many portions of the Chicago River are man-made, it is still a moving body of water filled with living organisms and aquatic wildlife, all those fish, and it will never be as clean as a pool, first. Second, there are many centuries-old pollutants settled on the bottom. From the glue-making factories, tanneries, and meat processing plants that used to line the Chicago River. Again, Bubbly Creek still bubbles. Yeah. Not to mention all of that raw sewage that about 50 days a year is dumped straight into the river. Nearly 40 billion gallons of sewage-laden river water has been released into Lake Michigan since 2000. Yeah. So it is still full of poop and decaying tannery contaminants.
So we can swim.
So there's a bunch of fecal coliform in the river, basically, and while fecal coliform might not get you, if you have a cut in your leg, if you have an ingrown toenail, do not rent a kayak. You should not be kayaking in the Chicago River in anything less than a wetsuit, as far as I'm concerned. But if you have an open wound on your lower half of your body, for the love of God, do not kayak in the Chicago River. Also, I used to give boat tours. The amount of condoms, trash, garbage, and human bodies. They found somebody floating in the Chicago River yesterday. Don't swim in the river. Here's the other problem, and you actually can fix this yourself. If you are currently flushing pharmaceuticals, paint thinner, household cleaning products, or other chemicals like a fucking dumb person, no offense, but like a dumb person, stop doing that. Our Chicago water treatment plants are not designed to remove paint thinner, fats from your fucking air fryer or whatever, and our water treatment plants are not designed to remove opioids from our Chicago River system. And while swimming in a sea of other people's Xanax is probably not going to kill you, it's also probably not very good for you. And you're also gonna get fucking tetanus or typhoid or some shit from or an STD from all the condoms. So
STD.
the other thing to keep in mind is that Chicago has a series of stormwater drains. You'll actually see them marked around the city, and they say drains to river, no dumping. I have a lot of them in my community of Albany Park. If you live near the river, if you look near the river, you'll see them. There's specific storm drains, and they say no dumping, drains to river. So all of the salts and oils and other crap on our roads often flow straight into the Chicago River. So please do not swim in the river. The MWRD, to this end, very, very, very much champions green architecture, rain gardens, permeable pavement, and open spaces that allow all of that excess water to filter through nature's filter. Our wastewater treatment plants are designed to replicate what rivers and groundwater and those biofilms around cesspools do naturally. So please, for the love of God, install those things in your yards, in your parkways, because they will actually help the amount of shit you have in your river and in your drinking water. And while humans still shouldn't swim in the river, fish sure like to these days. They always have, really. But in 1974, they only identified 10 different species in the Chicago River. One of them was the channel catfish. It lived in the North Shore Channel, and that shit must have been wild. Today, so 1974, there's only 10 species. Today, and by today I mean 2017, because that's the data I have, over 76, including 59 found just since 2000. Suffice it to say, fish can put up with a lot more shit than humans. But I will say, as an Albany Park resident, I like to take the Bird and Butterfly Trail in Ronan Park, and I saw with my own two eyes, and somebody else was there to witness it with me, so I promise this is true. I saw mink swimming in the Chicago River. You will see beavers, you will see minks, you will see ducks, creatures, and that is all because of the MWRD and the fact that we have been trying to clean our water for a very long time. Does anyone know what time it is? I'm sure I've gone over, but I only have a page left.
10 p.m.
Whew. It's like, I'm going to get to that. Today's MWRD is the shit. They treat 45 billion gallons of water each year for an average of 1.3 billion gallons of water each day. The Stickney Water Reclamation Plant alone has the capacity to treat 1 million gallons of wastewater per minute. That is the same amount that the average wastewater treatment plant in the state of Illinois does in a full day. We do it in a minute. The rest of Illinois, downstate, the people that want to separate from us, they do it in a day.
Suck it, Illinois.
The MWRD, also, remember how I said they have a bunch of jobs? The MWRD controls 76.1 miles of navigable waterways that are still used to ship heavy things like gravel and rocks and heavy stuff from the Great Lakes region through the Sanitarian Ship Canal to St. Louis or wherever it's got to go. We still use the river as a major source of transit. It's actually one of the least economically damaging ways to ship goods. It's just slow. That's the only problem. As we become more interested in green logistics, the Erie Canal and the Chicago Sanitarian Ship Canal are seeing more commercial traffic. And that's a good thing. You'll see barges floating down the river any given day of the summer, laden with gravel. That's one of the common things that you'll see. And that is all thanks to the MWRD, which on top of treating your water and making sure that you have nice, clean water to drink, are also literally managing like recreational boaters and every drunk sailboat owner you've ever seen on the Chicago River. The MWRD does that too. They have 3 jobs. They clean the water, they fucking bring in the water, and they deal with drunk sailboat owners. Incoming. Today, our Lake Michigan water is chemically treated with chlorine, to kill microbes, activated carbon to remove objectionable tastes and odors, and fluoride for healthier teeth. Now, this was the coolest fact I learned maybe in researching all of this. Polyphosphate is also added for the purpose of coating the inside of Chicago's pipes, preventing lead from old pipes leaching into your drinking water. So they are actively trying to keep you from having lead poisoning.
Wow.
Thank you, MWRD. I love tap water. I don't have to refill the bitterness. Now, outgoing wastewater treatment, so once you've pooped in it, It, again, replicates the same processes that naturally happen in rivers and ancient cesspools. First, basically what happens is like a river would filter it over the course of weeks, and our wastewater treatment plants typically treat water from your poop to clean enough for the river in about 8 to 12 hours. The first thing that they do are filter out solids with screens and settling tanks. So that's your fish, and that's your like poop settling to the bottom with cleaner water up top. Fats and oils are removed. Microorganisms are added to eat all of the poop. Leftover solids and phosphorus are actually reclaimed and sold back to farms as fertilizer, the same way we were doing in ancient Greece, motherfuckers. And the third step, disinfection, kills fecal coliform, and fecal coliform is what's going to give you cholera. Then into the river. Here's a list I found while researching of some of the items filtered out by the MWRD screens over the years. A 14-inch snapping turtle, car wheels and tires, 2x4 studs, lots of money, a huge ball of rope, tree branches, 2 opossums, a bowling ball, lots of fish, and a prosthetic leg.
Oh, that's where it is.
Can't find it anywhere.
Great timing. Now, the last section I have here is awards and recognition, and this is where I come back to the theme of this lecture series and talk about why our sewage system is the shit, and why it matters not just to you as Chicagoans, but to literally everyone in the United States and beyond. The I&M Canal, and I reiterate, reduced transit time between New York and St. Louis from 12 days, from 30 to 40 overland. What used to take you 40 days now only took you 12 because of the I&M Canal. It was abandoned in 1933. Large portions of it were filled in and replaced by the Stevenson Expressway. President Ronald Reagan deemed it the nation's first National Heritage Area in 1984. Sanitary and Ship Canal is the first reversed river in the world, dubbed one of the 7 wonders of American engineering by the American Society of Civil Engineers in 1955. It was later added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2011. It was the largest earth-moving operation in North America, one of the largest ever public works projects, and served as a training ground for a whole generation of water engineers. The water system that sewer daddy Ellis Sylvester Chesbrough designed for Chicago inspired many cities worldwide. Upon completion of those water crib tunnels, they attracted wide interest over the world. Detailed plans were sent on request to the Universal Exhibit in Paris in April of 1867. Chesbrough went on to consult on waterworks and sewage projects for many large cities in the United States. He served as a president of the American Society of Civil Engineers in 1887 and was appointed to a permanent consulting position in New York fucking City in 1882. They always copy us and then tell us we're the second city. Combined sewer systems, combined shit and other systems, like Chicagoans, are found in 700 communities around the United States. And again, we were the first ones to do it. The Midwest is home to 43% of these systems, which just goes to prove to you that every other Midwestern city that's not Chicago is copying us.
Agreed.
During the half-century around 1900, so 1850 to 1950, public health interventions, including sewage and wastewater management, succeeded in drastically reducing the incidence of waterborne diseases, cholera, typhoid, dysentery, and were an important cause in a massive and dramatic increase in life expectancy experienced at the time. In your packet, there's a picture of a graph of typhoid deaths in Chicago up until 1933, and you can see they have marked when the reversal of the river happened. And that just goes to show you that we were trying to save people from typhoid for a very long time. The TARP, or Deep Tunnel Project, is one of the largest civil engineering projects ever. It was named, along with the rest of our water system, a civil engineering monument of the millennium by the American Society of Civil Engineers in 1933. Only 10 such awards have ever been given, and we have a whole fucking display about it near Navy Pier. Because of its unparalleled scope, the TARP has become a model for cities throughout the United States and around the world, including projects in London, Singapore, and Vienna. But we talked about how it's inadequate. And I would like to remind you that being the first and largest comes with its drawbacks, as there are no blueprints to follow. This is the last section in summary. In summary, Chicagoans are tough as crap, smart as shit, and pooperly prepared for whatever the future has to offer. Oh man, I forgot to say first, second, and third. All jokes aside, I would personally like to thank every person who works for the Metropolitan Water Reclamation of the District of Chicago, or the MWRD, hope you're watching online, for their long history and often thankless history of providing us with not only clean drinking water, but sustainable ways to release treated water back into the Chicago River. Again, I grew up in a drought-afflicted region. I understand the value of this natural resource and appreciate their commitment to protecting it, because it is not guaranteed in other cities. It is not. Nope. Lake Michigan is unique, motherfuckers. Appreciate it. Stop taking hour-long showers, for the love of God. I also want to personally thank the MWRD for offering open houses to the public, typically at least once a year. They have ample information about their systems, what goes into your water, what happens to your water online. They have an incredible database. They clean up our rivers actively. They work with organizations like Friends of the Chicago River to install things like fish ladders in my community. And they are absolutely incredible stewards of their many beautiful historic buildings. The Terrence O'Brien plant in Skokie, right off Howard, the North Branch pumping station right near my house. I actually used to sell bricks for a living. That's how I got this brick. Shout out Brick Sink. Right by that bridge that's pictured in that picture in your hand. Anyway, but this is an old salt glazed brick from the North Branch pumping station. Cool. I found a match for it. Anyway. And then I was like, sorry, I'm taking this when I leave. But they have incredible architects on their staff that are like MWRD architects. They do an incredible job of advocating for the sensitive preservation of their buildings. They pay idiots like me to give them the best possible matches to their crazy 1920s brick, and they'll pay just about any price for it because they want to be good stewards of their historic buildings. And I love that. They also are thorough documentarians. You can go to the Chicago Public Library's website and look at an incredible archive of historic photos of their work throughout the years. And they, again, gave me this brick. Some guy was like, you can have that. And I was like, and I brought this lecture. Lastly, my last point of this lecture, I would like to remind all of you goofy, water-blessed Midwesterners to conserve water, especially during rainstorms. The next time that it is raining or snowing, fucking don't do laundry. Don't take an hour-long shower. Save your dishwasher for tomorrow. Otherwise, your friend that lives in Portage Park is going to call you and tell you she's got 8 inches of water in her basement. Stop flooding. Stop flushing pills and crazy shit down your drains. Throw out your drain cleaners. Don't flush them down your fucking toilets, because guess what? The fish have to deal with it. You're flushing it down the toilet because you're like, this is great. The fish have to deal with it. Don't be an asshole to other creatures on planet Earth. And please rip out your fucking lawn. And I don't care if you guys want to fight me on this because you love your stupid grass, but I have news for you. Prairie plants are thirsty. They have deep root systems. And if you want to stop your basement from flooding, here's a great idea. Take out your invasive species that's in your front and backyard and replace it with some fucking prairie plants. Sorry, if you love lawns, fight me. I'm from Texas, bitches. We need to rip them out, too. Put in some fucking agave.
Yeah, agave.
And finally, every single time you vote, which you're going to do this year, it's 2024, every single time you vote, most of the time in Chicago, you're voting for a lot of judges. I know that's annoying, but you're also voting for MWRD commissioners. Historically, Chicago has a crazy corruption problem where we just put any random old schmuck into an MWRD commissioner position. Please vote for people that don't take hour-long showers to your MWRD positions. Please, those people are on your ballot. You have a choice in who works for the MWRD and who controls the use of water and the treatment of water in your community. So please make sure that you are electing crunchy granola motherfuckers. and rip out your lawns. Thank you. I tried to make my lectures shorter than last year, and I failed. A final reminder, we do not want your poop, but we do want your money. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. I would like to give a very big shout out to Lisa running our audiovisual tonight. Lisa's also the one that sends you prints in the mail if you come to 6 of our lectures or events. Shout out to Olivia, our marketing manager, who introduced me today. Shout out to Steph, who turned you away at the door. And Steph will be giving a lecture for us, as will Olivia, because if you volunteer for me, eventually I'm going to make you give a lecture for me. And lastly, because your water is not polluted, because it doesn't have spit on it, and because you're drinking alcohol, tip your bartenders. Thank you. Yay! Give us money. I'll take questions. Do you have any questions?
Okay, I lived in Winnetka, right on the
Okay.
lake. Live in Rogers Park, right on the lake. I've always, so they closed the lake for swimming,
Mm-hmm.
and I was always operating on the assumption that was because the river had too much, so they
Correct.
opened things up.
They do, yes.
Okay, so is it our own shit or is it
Yes.
Milwaukee's shit?
So the question was, I used to live in Winnetka, and every so often they close the beaches in Rogers Park, and they say don't swim here. Basically, when we have a CSO event or a combined sewage overflow event, and we don't want it backing up in Portage Park, so we release it into the river. If the rainfall is particularly heavy, we also throw open the locks on the Chicago River and on the North Shore Channel and down in Calumet. And we allow that river to kind of reverse direction again and flood a little bit into Lake Michigan. So anytime you see signs up at a Chicago area beach that says don't swim here, it's because we have recently had a large rainstorm. If you love kayaking in the Chicago River, do not do it after a large rainstorm. Do it when it hasn't rained for a long time. The reality is like we are trying really, really hard to fight back against the sorts of sewage overflows, but no, it is your own poop. And it's not Wisconsin's poop, it is your own poop. And most people don't like to swim where there's a risk of fecal coliform bacteria. So if you are like really confident in your immune system, sure, hit the beaches. But if you're not, don't swim after there's been a long rainstorm. And what do we do about laundry when it's raining?
Never do laundry.
We don't do it. Question?
Now, it's also Indiana. There will be times when Gary and other cities over there have to because of heavy rain.
Right.
That will come over this way depending on the wind.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Depends on the wind.
I love to blame it on Indiana.
It's true. It also might be Indiana's poop. Who knows? Other questions? Yeah. It has to be a question. If you have a comment, just tell me later.
I actually have a question. It's a couple parts, though. You can pick what you want to choose. So number one, the lifting of the city. I had heard a lot of the news was kind of buried because the Civil War was picking up. Curious if you have thoughts on that. Number two, like the reversal of the Chicago River had some element on the World's Fair and the Ferris wheel and how it kind of was destroyed eventually because we decided to reverse the Chicago River. I know there's a lot of politics around that. And I just want to say, like, we've done a lot of running around Goose Island, and we saw beavers at least twice.
Yeah.
2 beavers at one point, which was kind of cool. But yeah, the Ferris wheel thing, I had heard, and I don't know if it's one of these lectures or similar thing that
Not my lectures.
That basically right before we reversed the river officially and blew the levees, there were some protests from some of the towns down south from us where they were trying to prevent us from reversing the levees, and we kind of like Chicago politics did it overnight, and because of that eventually when the Ferris wheel made its way around after the thing, it made its way to one of those towns which kind of killed it. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Okay, so the question to summarize for our online viewers is several-fold. One question is, did the reversal of the river impact the Chicago Ferris wheel and the World's Fair? Because of pollution, we built the 4-mile crib in 1891 because most of our cribs at that point were, and you can see in that chart, We're mostly around 2 miles out into the lake. And we were so scared that people at the World's Fair would develop cholera that we built a 4-mile crib in 1891 so that people at the fair would be drinking nice and clear water. They did build the world's first Ferris wheel in the Great Chicago at the World's Columbian Exposition, or the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. The World's Fair was designed to be temporary. It eventually burned down, probably arsonists, and they relocated certain things. There were some states that took back their buildings, like the state of Maine kept their state of Maine building at the 1893 World's Fair. You can still go visit Maine. Again, people were just fucking rolling around houses at this point in time. The Ferris wheel ended up being dismantled and actually given to St. Louis. They reassembled it, they used it for a few years, and it was eventually scrapped. Not at all related to the reversal of the river, but to the other sort of question you had, where towns downstream from Chicago were really pissed about the reversal of the river. They absolutely were. The joke about St. Louis being mad at us and selling it back to us as Budweiser is based in maybe high-level fact of St. Louis was super fucking pissed about this, and again, they took us to court, and it wasn't until 1930 that the Supreme Court ended up involved in this dispute between Chicago and many of its surrounding, not only people surrounding us on Lake Michigan who were mad about us stealing their water, but also downstream communities that were pissed about us polluting their water systems. Basically, everyone was mad at us, and yes, Chicago politics, we kind of did it, and we're like, fuck you! And we fought a number of court cases for quite a long time, several decades, but eventually people lost because we fucking rock. And they suck, and that sucks to be St. Louis.
Thank you.
That's generally the question. That's going to be a comment from you, I know it. No? Tell me after. Questions. It has to end in a question mark. Question. Where was Chicago's first well? I looked it up. I'll have to look it back up for you. I tried to keep this lecture not going overtime this year. I managed to write notes that were 8 words less. And one of the 8 words I took out was where the well was, but I'll look it up for you and get back to you. It was downtown. I mean, keep in mind, Chicago was incorporated as a city or a town of 200 people in 1833. The first public well was built in 1834. And so it was, not a big town at the time. So keep in mind, the center of Chicago's downtown was kind of like Wolf Point. That's where you had Beaubiant's Tavern and people hanging out drinking. And you also had some settlements close to the Chicago River. So kind of between Wolf Point and where the river meets the lake is where it was vaguely, and I have a specific intersection for you. I just took it out of my notes. Questions?
So
has to end in a question mark.
No, this is the question. I ask questions. So I've always been told, my mom always says we have the best drinking water in the world, and compared to a lot of other cities, I mean, I could taste the difference when I go other places. So I'm just saying, so are we? Maybe not the world, but are we probably one of the cleanest in the United States?
So the question was, do we have the cleanest drinking water in the United States? I think that depends on which corrupt politician you ask. I think we are blessed. The Great Lakes are unique in the world. They are the largest freshwater lakes in the world. And so the fact that we are literally on the shore of some of the largest freshwater lakes in the world means that, yes, we do have a certain super high level of privilege when it comes to very clean drinking water, but it ultimately comes down to is lake water that Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Illinois pooping in cleaner than the mountain streams of Seattle or wherever they get their fucking water? That depends on who you ask. I also think Chicago tap water tastes great. I drink tap water in Chicago, and people are like, you're going to get lead poisoning. And I'm like, your Brita doesn't filter out lead, bitch. But now I know the MWRD adds, poly whatever, to your water to keep lead from infecting you. And that's also why all of your Park District fountains are running all the time. And exactly. So I'll take a little bit of lead. It's fine. But ultimately, I think that if we have the cleanest water, it depends on who you ask. But we do have one of the best freshwater sources
Yeah, I was
at our
referring to,
doorstep.
like cities, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I mean, like, we definitely have better water than Flint.
Yeah.
Questions? Other questions? Questions?
So there's still a tannery in use in Chicago at like Websterish and the river. Have they improved to like not discard into the river? Do they have better methods now?
So the question is, there's still a tannery in Chicago. Does it discharge into the river? Friends of the Chicago River is a very effective nonprofit organization, and they are very good at being like, don't. And functionally, industrial businesses get in a lot of trouble if they're dumping industrial waste in the Chicago River in 2024. Actually, one thing that was very popular for some of the buildings built along the river, including Trump Tower, actually, Adrian Smith's building, as I like to call it, certain buildings along the Chicago River, especially on the main stem, did this very cool, novel leadership and energy efficiency design. I'm looking at an architect in the back, am I right? Okay, lead credits were awarded to buildings that had like sustainable systems, and still are. So one thing they experimented with predominantly early 2000s was pulling river water to use in the cooling systems of their air conditioning, and then releasing the spent air conditioning water back into the Chicago River. And they actually got into a shitload of trouble for this. So they were trying something novel. And again, just like I said about the TAR project, when you're doing something no one has done before, you're gambling. You might build a CSO sewer system that's not great, but you tried it before anyone else. So I do know that even people that are just taking the water, using it in cooling systems and returning it to the river have gotten in a ton of trouble in lawsuits, because when you return it to the river, it's warm, and that fucks with the fish or whatever. I know a lot about buildings. I know very little about fish. But ultimately, I imagine that if a tannery was dumping sludge and crap into the Chicago River, they would be fighting a lot of lawsuits. Friends of the Chicago River, they're great. They do river cleanups. I hope that answered your question. Any other questions? Has to end in a question. Don't tell me a fact. Tell it to me after.
Do you know why, when they built the sanitary and ship canal, they didn't just follow the route of the Illinois and Michigan canal?
Yeah, so the question was why the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal didn't follow the exact route of the Illinois-Michigan Canal. Well, first of all, it is easier to build a new canal than it is to expand an existing one, because one already has water in it. And they just, I'm really curious about this myself to some degree. I know that Mud Lake was about 2 miles, according to people who sludged through it. I know that common routes around Mud Lake, known as the Portage, were about 8 miles. How you get from 8 miles to 96 miles of the I&M Canal, boggles my mind. I think it's partially because there are a series of locks on the I&M Canal, because there is a difference. There's actually aqueducts in the I&M Canal as well, because where they take the canal water and float it over rivers. Because you have to step down gradually when you're making elevation changes. Even if it's a super minor elevation change, you have to build a series of locks. So I know that those 96 miles involved a lot of locks, and maybe it was just the best idea at the time. Maybe it had to do with what land was publicly owned. I'm not entirely sure. The Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal is so much bigger. I mean, those pictures, I put them side by side for a reason, because, I mean, the I&M Canal, go see it. It's parts of it are still there. You can take a little mule-pulled boat ride if you want.
Or bike ride.
Yeah. You can bike along it. Again, Ronald Reagan, first National Heritage Corridor. It's very small, and the Sanitary and Ship Canal, which is still there today, and you can fucking take your speedboat down it, it's huge. It's massive. And so my guess is that when you're building a canal that's much bigger, much wider, much larger volume, you have to take a different route. It's easier to build a new canal, especially if you have dynamite, than it is to expand an old one. It also, by building a new route, they didn't have to impede traffic on the I&M Canal. They were still using the I&M Canal. The peak shipping year of the I&M Canal was like in the 1880s. So they were still using it. So my guess is that 96 miles was never a good idea. And by the time they got to 1892 and started constructing the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal, they were like, why the fuck is this 96 miles? That's my best guess. I don't fully know, but I know a lot about canals, and I've actually been trying to answer that question for a long time. I'm like, why 96 miles? It seems so excessive. Who knows? 1840 shit. That's all I know. Other questions? One more.
The EPA has asked that the Chicago River people should be able to swim in. Do you think they're ever going to make that?
The question is, the EPA passed Clean Water Acts, and they basically were like, hey, stop fucking up rivers and, clean them up, and people should be able to swim. Again, you can swim in the river today if you're bold. The issue is not today. The issue isn't that we're dumping shit in the water. Sometimes we do, but ultimately, like, the issue today, I mean, there's kayakers in downtown Chicago every day. I think they're dumb because there's tour boats that weigh 2 tons with steel hulls that the kayakers don't listen to the honking of, so it's a dangerous waterway regardless. And if you fall out of your kayak, there are literally no swim ladders for you to get back up 10 feet to the shore. So don't swim in the Chicago River for a variety of reasons. In fact, every tour boat, if you are drunk at a bachelor party and you jump from a bridge into the Chicago River in the main stem, a tour boat has like maritime responsibility to pull you out because there's nowhere for you to climb yourself back out. And drunk bachelors never realize this. I'm on a tangent. Regardless, the Chicago River is dangerous to swim in because of traffic to me. It's gross to swim in because of condoms and trash and dead bodies. And the Chicago River ultimately, like, no matter how much work the EPA does or however many regulations they pass, they cannot change the fact that there is solid feet of decomposing garbage and pollution and muck at the bottom of the river that is still processing out today. So in terms of like when will we be able to swim in the Chicago River, I mean, when is the EPA going to pay a massive cleanup project to dredge the bottom of the Chicago River? Because it's really not anything we're doing today. It's that we just did so much shit back then that Bubbly Creek still bubbles. Oh. Any other questions?
Paying for past mistakes.
Okay, if you have comments, come and tell me. I love to hear them. Otherwise, please don't forget to give us money. We're very nice. We're all volunteer run. We have no large grants from DCASE because they're very annoying to write. So give us money. Thank you. Come back next week.